I never believed in mystical stories. You know, those tales about ghosts, mysterious shadows, footsteps in empty corridors. I thought all that was just made up by people who watch too many horror movies. But one night in my life completely changed my mind. It happened a few years ago. I was working in a small town in western Ukraine. It was contract work, and a few of us guys were put up in an old Soviet-era dormitory. The building looked like it hadn't been renovated in decades. Peeling plaster, windows that didn't close properly, long dark corridors with dim light bulbs. For the first few days, I didn't even pay attention to the atmosphere. I was tired after work and fell asleep quickly. Everything started on the fourth night. Around 3 in the morning, I woke up with a strange feeling, as if the room had suddenly gotten much colder. It was spring outside, the heating was already off, but the chill was so intense that goosebumps ran across my skin. I opened my eyes and noticed the door to my room was open, even though I was certain I had closed it before going to bed. It seemed to me that someone was standing in the hallway, a barely visible dark figure, motionless like a shadow. I called out, "Who's there?" No answer. Just silence. The feeling was strange. Not fear, but a tense unease, as if my body already knew something was wrong, but my mind was still searching for a logical explanation. I got up, walked to the door, and peeked into the corridor. It stretched into darkness, the bulb above my door flickering, while the rest of the lights weren't working. No sound at all. I decided to walk down and check. Maybe it was the neighbor from the room opposite mine. I took a few steps when I heard a quiet rustle from the far end of the corridor, as if someone was slowly running their hand along the wall. The sound was getting closer. "Hey, who's there?" I called again. Silence. Just that slow, sticky sound. I turned back toward my room, and at that very moment the rustling suddenly stopped. When I went inside and closed the door, my heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. I tried to convince myself it was just someone playing a prank. The next morning I asked the guys if anyone had been out at night. They all brushed me off. "Are you crazy?" We slept like logs. One of the local workers, who had been living in the dorm for years, suddenly became serious and said, "Years ago, a security guard hanged himself at the end of that corridor. They say you can still hear him at night." I just smiled skeptically, but deep down the thought stuck with me. 2 days later, the temperature shift happened again at night. I woke up to that same cold. This time I decided not to get up. I lay still, listening. And then I heard footsteps. Slow, heavy, moving straight toward my door. The steps stopped. Total silence. I was about to call out when the doorknob slowly turned. The door opened slightly, and through the crack I saw nothing. Just the dark corridor and nothing else. I jumped up, locked the door, and didn't sleep again until morning. About a week had passed since those strange nights. The work was hard, and I tried to push thoughts of the dormitory ghosts out of my mind. But every night before bed, I caught myself listening intently to every sound. The corridors here were the kind you wanted to walk through quickly even in the daytime, as if the walls remembered something. One evening I came back later than everyone else. Everyone was already asleep. The lights in the hallway were off, and only one bulb was lit near the stairs. I quietly walked to my room, but as I reached for the door handle, I heard a voice. It was muffled and sounded as if it came through thick walls. It seemed like someone was speaking behind the door of the room opposite mine, but that room had been locked for months. No one lived there. I froze, listening. The voice was male, quiet, and I couldn't make out the words. It sounded like he wasn't speaking to me, but to someone nearby. And then something strange happened. The voice suddenly stopped, and in the silence I heard short, heavy breathing, right behind me. I spun around. No one was there. Just an empty hallway. A shiver ran down my spine. I quickly went into my room and locked the door, but the feeling of unease wouldn't leave. A few minutes later, I heard a faint knocking. At first, I thought it was one of the neighbors, but the sound was too rhythmic. 3 knocks, pause, 2 knocks, again and again, as if someone was tapping on pipes or wood. I took out my phone to record the sound, but the moment I turned on the recorder, it stopped, and that silence in that moment was worse than any sound. The next day, I decided to talk to a local man who knew stories about this dormitory. He stayed quiet for a while and then said, "That room across from yours, it's not just empty. A father and son used to live there. The father drank and abused the boy. One night, neighbors heard him beating the child, but no one intervened. In the morning, the father was found dead, and the boy was gone. They never found him. People say that at night, you can hear him whispering or knocking." I listened, feeling the cold creep into my bones. Then the man added, "Just, if you hear him knocking, don't answer. They say if you do, he'll come." I tried to take it as just a legend, but that very night it happened again. The voice behind the door, quiet but distinct, and that same rhythmic knock. 3 knocks, pause, 2 knocks. This time I couldn't resist. I went to the door and almost unconsciously knocked back. 3 times. Pause. Twice. Silence behind the door. I thought maybe I'd imagined it all. But a minute later, someone knocked on my door. The same pattern, only louder. My heart started pounding in my throat. I went to the peephole. The hallway was dark, but I clearly saw a silhouette. Short, thin, head lowered. He stood completely still, not moving even when I stared for several seconds. And then, he slowly lifted his head. I didn't see a face, just complete solid darkness where it should have been. I jumped back from the door, grabbed my phone, and was about to call someone from the dorm when I suddenly heard the doorknob slowly turn. The lock held, but the feeling that it was trying to get in was so real that I stood there holding my breath. A few seconds later, everything went quiet. I stood there in the darkness of my room, not moving until the sun came up. That same day, I packed my things and moved out. After that, I never saw or heard anything strange again, but every night when I go to bed, I listen to hear if that rustling or those footsteps will start again. And the worst thing is, I never found a logical explanation for any of it. Now, when someone says ghosts don't exist, I don't argue. I just smile, because I know that sometimes, in the dark, there can be someone you won't see, but will definitely feel.